In university, we learn economics through textbooks, models, and assumptions, but business games force you to live the consequences, and Capitalism Lab forces you to live with them immediately. Every pricing mistake, every investment decision, every supply shock shows up in your profits. Or your bankruptcy. And trust me, the bankruptcy part can come fast. That's why this game has become my reference point for evaluating economic realism in business and management games. Today, we're looking at how Capitalism Lab teaches concepts you usually learn in university, but in a far more brutal and practical way.
Yes. University, where caffeine is the only thing inflating faster than tuition.
So today, instead of textbooks and coffee, we're looking at how Capitalism Lab lets you experience these concepts in real time.
Before we jump into the lessons, let's give the game the credit it deserves. Capitalism Lab began as Capitalism 2, and it has been refined continuously for more than 20 years. Over time, multiple DLCs have expanded its economic depth, including city simulation, the digital age expansion, banking and finance, and the service industries pack. There are also several major community mods available. For this video, we will assume the Real World mod as our default, because it adds realism that fits our analysis. Capitalism Lab combines both microeconomics and macroeconomic elements, and it functions as a full economy simulator. It is broad in scope, but intentionally shallow in certain areas, which is part of its design philosophy. To prepare this video, we played 4 guided scenarios. We explored what it takes to become an oil baron. We built a computer hardware giant from the ground up. We launched a fashion brand, and we grew a pharmaceutical empire. Each of these scenarios teaches a different set of economic lessons. Your turn, Doc.
Lesson 1. Price setting and pricing mistakes. Pricing is one of the hardest decisions in real business. Textbooks make it look simple, but in real life, it's more of a multidisciplinary art than a clean formula. You adjust, you test, you fail, and you try again. And Capitalism Lab doesn't make it any easier. Every price change you make affects everything: your sales volume, your margins, your brand strength, your competition, and sometimes your entire survival. Understanding price sensitivity is a real-world superpower, and Capitalism Lab lets you experiment with it live. Price sensitivity, or elasticity, basically asks, if I change the price, how much do my customers freak out? When sensitivity is high, even a tiny increase in price causes a big drop in sales. When sensitivity is low, customers keep buying anyway. Economists measure this by comparing the relative change in price to the relative change in quantity sold. For example, if computer prices go up by 1% and demand drops by 2%, that's elastic behavior. Customers are reacting strongly. But if the price of milk rises by 1% and demand barely moves, that's inelastic. People don't have many alternatives. Elasticity depends on competition, substitutes, whether the product is a luxury or an essential, and many other factors.
Some companies think they have pricing power, until Capitalism Lab shows them the bankruptcy screen.
Now let's see how Capitalism Lab simulates elasticity in the scenarios we tested. In the oil baron scenario, you're tied to local prices and what nearby competitors are offering. If you raise prices too fast, customers switch immediately to the next available option. You start with almost no pricing power, and elasticity is high. Gasoline elasticity sits around minus 3.36 and diesel around minus 4.24, meaning a small price increase causes a relatively large drop in quantity sold. This only applies at the firm level though. The overall market still consumes oil, just not from you. In reality, empirical data shows that price elasticity is often much higher than what we see in the game. In the fashion brand scenario, everything becomes even more sensitive. Fashion is emotional, competitive, and pretty brutal in the early game. High heels behave like discretionary fashion items, with an elasticity around minus 3.33, while t-shirts sit around minus 3.17 and jeans around minus 2.64. With so many substitutes and competitors, customers switch products instantly if your pricing isn't spot on. And interestingly, the empirical data aligns quite well with the game's results. In the pharma company scenario, the mechanics behave a bit differently. cold pills show an elasticity of about minus 3.01, meaning customers are highly responsive to price changes. Vaccines, positioned in the game as advanced, high-value products, display a lower elasticity around minus 2.12, indicating stronger pricing power. This hierarchy makes sense. The more specialized and essential the product, the fewer substitutes are available, and the less price-sensitive consumers become. The game captures commodity-like products quite accurately, but it slightly overestimates price sensitivity for breakthrough or life-saving products whose real-world elasticity is typically much lower. In the tech hardware scenario, price elasticity varies significantly with the level of innovation. R&D-driven products such as laptops exhibit strong pricing power and relatively low elasticity around minus 2.48, whereas more commoditized items, like printers, have much higher elasticity around minus 8.3. In other words, innovation lets you set the price, while commoditized products leave pricing largely to the market. The game models advanced products realistically, but it tends to overstate elasticity for lower-tech hardware compared to real-world figures. Lesson 2. Imports and exports. Most business games use closed economies. It keeps things simple, but also completely unrealistic. Capitalism Lab is different because it lets you import and export, and this single feature instantly makes the game feel far more like a real global economy. Imports play a huge role in industries where your product depend on many different components. If you're manufacturing something complex, like electronics, machinery, or pharmaceuticals, importing inputs can drastically change your margins and your competitive position from one quarter to the next. But in industries like software or digital goods, imports barely matter at all because your costs aren't tied to physical parts. With a single decision, imports can either save your profit margins or completely erase them. Exports flip the logic. When you export, you produce locally but sell globally, which means you can escape the limitations of your home market. Local competitors lowering prices doesn't matter. You're selling overseas. Exports are especially powerful in industries with lots of parts, variants, or product families. When you scale those kinds of products across larger global markets, small efficiencies turn into massive profits.
Imports are great, right up until you realize your entire business collapses if one ship gets delayed.
Lesson 3. Capital allocation and opportunity costs. This is one of the most realistic parts of the game. The most common reason for bankruptcy in Capitalism Lab is simple: overinvestment. Just like in real life, you're constantly choosing between expanding production, improving quality, investing in marketing, building new facilities, managing debt, funding R&D, and the game forces you to adapt as markets shift. Lesson 4. R&D trade-offs. In most games, R&D is a button you click. In Capitalism Lab, you build labs, hire researchers, allocate budgets, set priorities, and choose between incremental improvements or huge breakthroughs. What really sets the game apart is its approach to R&D. You're not just unlocking tech trees. You continuously improve existing products year after year, while also hitting major milestones that let you launch entirely new ones. Even better, you can upgrade your inputs as well as your final product, which feels much closer to how real innovation works.
In oil and fashion, R&D gives you small but steady buffs, better branding, a bit more pricing power, nothing too crazy. But in pharma and tech, R&D is your superpower. A single breakthrough can build you a moat so wide, your competitors need binoculars to even see you.
Lesson 5. Types of competition. Competition isn't one size fits all. Each industry behaves differently. Textbooks love neat labels for competition types, but real markets don't work that way. It's a messy spectrum between pure competition and pure monopoly, and almost nobody lives at the extremes. Capitalism Lab actually captures this. Every move you make, especially horizontal integration, shifts your industry along that competitive landscape. Computers often end up in oligopolies, With a few niche products drifting into full-on monopoly territory, oil starts out competitive but slowly slides into monopolistic competition as players carve out their turf. Fashion, pure chaos. Retail competition is brutal and honestly pretty realistic. And pharma sits in classic oligopoly land with little monopoly pockets whenever you launch a patented drug.
In pharma, competition disappears faster than my patience when a tutorial pops up in a Tycoon game.
Lesson 6. Supply chains and interconnected markets. Supply chains are where Capitalism Lab quietly becomes brilliant. It teaches how demand for one input affects entire markets. Oil is the perfect example. If you don't control your supply, you're basically gambling. Prices swing wildly, your margins evaporate, and one bad month can take you down. Fashion, on the other hand, is a giant maze of inputs. You're dealing with raw materials, intermediate goods, manufacturing, retail, dozens of steps. And here's the painful part. If just one margin collapses anywhere in that chain, the whole business can fall apart. Pharma is complex for a different reason. The inputs are specialized and hard to copy, which makes the supply chain a huge competitive advantage. But the fixed costs are massive, so those high margins aren't greed, they're survival. And then there's technology, the final boss of supply chains. It has the most interconnected, expensive inputs in the game. If you don't integrate vertically, owning key components and production, you'll pay a premium at every stage, and those premiums add up fast. Lesson 7. Vertical and horizontal integration. Textbooks explain integration. Capitalism Lab lets you feel it. One of the first things you'll notice is that the game clearly leans toward vertical integration. Why? Because supply shortages are everywhere. If you don't own your inputs, sooner or later, you're going to get burned. Vertical integration gives you stability, control, and higher margins, which is why it often becomes your best friend in the game. Horizontal integration, on the other hand, helps you scale, increase market share, and reduce costs by spreading operation across similar products. Different industries feel this differently. Oil practically requires vertical integration. If you don't control extraction and refining, good luck surviving market swings. Fashion benefits from integration, but it's not mandatory. You can thrive with smart partnerships, as long as your supply chain doesn't implode. Pharma needs vertical integration for its core inputs. Those specialized ingredients are too risky to outsource. Tech is a mix. Some products can hit near monopoly conditions if you lock down key components, while others stay competitive. Capitalism Lab makes integration strategy feel real. Because one wrong move can put your entire empire on life support.
Vertical integration. Because who doesn't want to own every single step from dirt to dollars?
Lesson 8. Credit markets. Most business games either pretend financing doesn't exist or let you borrow like there's no tomorrow. Capitalism Lab does the opposite. It gives you a real financial toolbox. You get access to bank loans for quick leverage, bonds when you want structured, long-term financing, IPOs to raise massive capital and boost valuation, venture capital to accelerate early growth, private placements for quieter strategic fundraising. It's not a perfect simulation. Credit is definitely more generous than in the real world. But compared to other business games, this is by far one of the most complete and realistic financing systems you'll find. Capitalism Lab doesn't just show you how companies grow. It shows you how they pay for that growth.
If real banks were this generous, I'd already be on my third skyscraper.
Now that we've covered some of the core economic lessons inside Capitalism Lab, we'll explore many more games on this channel, always evaluating their realism, the business environments they simulate, and how well they teach economic thinking. If you enjoyed this deeper dive, subscribe, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.